Warden. I'm a summer intern with the Land and Water Department just down the street from the courthouse. I'm an engineering student. I go to UW-Milwaukee, and some of the work that I do with Vilas County is we'll do a lot of data collection. So we'll do spiny water flea monitoring. We'll go to different lakes that we presume don't have them, and we'll try and find them. We hope they don't have them. So that's a little bit about me. But first, invasive species. So spiny water fleas, they're an invasive species, which means they are not from here. They are not naturally occurring here until humans introduced them here. And so here's just a few examples. You may have heard of these. These are zebra mussels. They're also invasive. They're not from Wisconsin. They're not from our Northwoods region. And same with Eurasian water milfoil. It's not from this region. They were introduced unnaturally. And so, spiny water flea. So I have spiny water fleas in these pictures here, and you can see they're small. And you definitely saw in the bottle here, real small. They're from Northern Europe and Asia. Actually, the spiny water fleas that were introduced to the Great Lakes have been traced down to a lake in Russia, a freshwater lake in Russia, kind of near St. Petersburg. So it's saying that in Northern Europe, that Russia, all those freshwater lakes have spiny water flea. And it got carried over on ocean vessels. They're in 5 different lakes in Vilas County, confirmed. And they live for about 2 weeks. Each of these individuals will live for about 2 weeks, but in that time span, they'll grow from even smaller than what they are now to their full size, and then they'll lay eggs, or they'll produce eggs, and then they'll breed by the millions.
What is their full size? You said you went like that, they're like 4 inches?
Full size? Oh, well, okay.
Okay.
They're full size, they'll grow, the biggest ones, maybe up to a ½ inch.
Oh, okay.
And most of that length is their like real small tail. Supposed to, their body size might be 3 to 4 millimeters, but with that tail, they're quite long. And yeah, here, this is with a microscope with some magnification. You can see the spiny water flea. We have spines here. Those create some issues there. And then I took these pictures with this magnification here, which after this presentation we can all look into this, and I'll put them out onto the tray, and we can look at spiny water fleas under magnification. So, spiny water fleas, there are a zooplankton. And zooplankton are a whole bunch of microscopic to just real darn tiny animals in our lakes. These are Daphnia. Daphnia is kind of an umbrella term that encompasses over 100 native freshwater zooplankton. And these guys, they mostly feed on other zooplankton, or they feed on the microscopic algae in the lake, and they really monitor those algae levels. And so, these sizes aren't to scale, but I really want to illustrate spiny water flea are a zooplankton, but they're like elephants to the other zooplankton. These are big zooplankton. I don't have any other examples of any other zooplankton, not with me today at least, but the spiny water flea are just, you can see them with the naked eye in the bottle, but the other zooplankton will just look like specks. You won't notice another zooplankton next to the spiny water flea. So, like I just mentioned, they're from Northern Europe, kind of, and including United Kingdom as well, but mostly the Scandinavia and pretty much all of Russia. And actually here, this lake here is Lake Ladoga, kind of outside of St. Petersburg. That's where that Great Lakes spiny water flea was traced down with ocean-faring vessels. And ocean-faring vessels just like this one that would come into the Great Lakes. They dumped ballast water, so these big cargo ships have tanks, just helps with balance and making sure the ship stays afloat. They'll take in water, and it took in water from Lake Ladoga, Russia, and kind of ferried it all the way across the ocean, and then it dumped into the Great Lakes, introducing spiny water flea in the 80s. So I have a simple, very, very simple food chain to try to introduce why spinies are a problem. So they disrupt this food chain. So this is super simple. All the food chains in all the lakes are quite intricate, but just make it real simple. We have larger adult fish. This is a northern pike up here. They usually feed on smaller fish, or even just freshly spawned fish here. And these guys, their primary food source of these native zooplankton is Daphnia. They're super abundant in lakes, and it's their primary food source. Well, these these guys feed on just the microscopic algae in the lake. And then this is where spiny water flea fits in. It's these freshly spawned fish cannot eat the invasive spiny water flea because their tails are just too long, and especially these spines here too. The fries, the freshly spawned fish, they'll choke on their tails and spines. It's really painful, so they'll spit it out and they can't eat them. But the spiny water flea here will eat the native zooplankton and really drastically diminish those populations. So the freshly spawned fish have less to feed on, and so they have to move to less abundant other food sources. And yes, adult fish and lots of just other larger fish, when they're fully grown, will feed on spiny water flea, but spiny water flea will reproduce way more rapidly than any of the larger fish will eat them. And so there's effects to spiny water flea. There's this handout, that's where I get lots of this information from the University of Minnesota. We see drastically lower levels of native zooplankton in lakes with spiny water flea, because spiny water flea is just eating all that native zooplankton. But also, especially walleye affected by this, but the walleye in their first year tend to be at least 12% smaller in lakes with spiny water flea, because their food source is being lowered because the spiny water flea is eating them and they can't eat the spiny water flea. So that means we'll see lower walleye populations. The smaller walleye will be preyed on more by larger fish, and they have a lower winter survival rate just because they can't get enough food before that time comes. And this is the same handout up here. At the end of this presentation, I can hand them out, or you can come up and take them. So how they spread in Wisconsin? So obviously we don't have big ocean-faring vessels going between each of our lakes here. But we do have just regular boaters, regular fishing boats, wake boats, any sort of boat. And the main way they spread it, they will attach to the hull at times, just on the side, but that's not the primary way they spread. It's when boats drop anchor, or they drop fishing line, they'll attach to the anchor, especially anchor lines, and the fishing line as well. And then that's transported to another lake. And then it only takes one spiny water flea too. They can reproduce asexually, just one, and it'll be a direct genetic clone, and then they're spread. It only takes one.
Quick question, how long do they survive? Like if they're on an anchor, somebody pulls the anchor out of the water, puts it in their boat, goes home, and then relaunches that. Do they survive that, or how fast do they have to be introduced to another water source?
So I know the DNR, they recommend to let your boat dry for 5 days, but especially if the spiny water flea got into a live well where it can't be drained all the way and there might be just a little bit of water, they could survive. But if it's within that 5-day stretch, yes, there's a chance that they'll still be alive, but there's also a chance they might be dead. But it's especially that same day transfer is when they'll still be alive. Even within 2 days, they might still be living. So we have spiny water flea in Wisconsin. We tend to see it with lakes around population centers. So the Madison chain has it. They see lots of boats going in and out. So one of the boats was bound to have it and introduced it to the Madison chain. Same with Lake Winnebago, just high traffic, lots of boats. But we see it I have another map on the next slide. But we see it in 5 lakes in Vilas County, and that's the most out of all the counties in Wisconsin. That's why it's so critical here, more than other places in the state. But yes, there's 15 lakes in Wisconsin that have it, and that includes the Great Lakes, the Superior and Michigan that we border. Here's a better map, excuse me. We got a map of Vilas County. There's other invasives on this map too, but these red ones, Ike Walton, trout, plum, star, and stormy are the ones that have confirmed to have spiny water flea. And we see this we have DNR databases where we can kind of see tendencies of travel for moving between lakes for boaters. We see Trout Lake is a high traffic lake, as well as Plum and Star. These lakes have lower traffic, but it was introduced at some point and it's in there. And so we have prevention methods. Prevention is so critical because once a spiny water flea is in the lake, we have no scientifically backed up method to effectively remove them from the lake. They're so small and they reproduce so quickly that we don't have a proper method of removing them from the lake. There's a lot of research being done, especially at the Trout Lake Limnology Center. They do a lot of research with spiny water flea and all the fish and everything about the lakes. But this is part of what I do with the county. I have it here actually. It's a free boat wash schedule. So this is hot water, high pressure. I actually have it here today, just across the street. And at the end, we can go take a look and I can talk about it more. But I'll do free boat washes, get any sort of, not just spiny water flea, but any sort of invasive off the boat, and clean out live wells and make sure there's no spread of any sort of invasive species. But we always recommend to remove any plants, anything you see on the boat that belongs in the lake, we remove it. And even just a rinse with a hose can do a lot. So we recommend cleaning your boats before entering another lake. So I have some pictures up here, but if anyone wanted to come up, and we can use the magnification, so if you guys wanted to come up here, I can pull some spiny water fleas out of the bottle and we can see them under magnifications.
Sure.
Sure?
I'll go. I want to see.
Sorry, Steve.
So I know that the house and boys he's coming in.
So I don't have like
weight. I don't know if he wants to do it from the station and make it not. I mean, if he's still in his house.
no other takers? These guys were collected in Lake and Stony Brook, and they're stored in almost white in color, almost
Yeah.
white. So
He's still pretty good.
Oh, that should be.
it's really that tail that's almost
Yeah,
kind of
right.
like a whitish color.
Right.
Yeah. And then they have a big black eye spot.
So, I wonder how many, we were on Storm Hill, I wonder how many years they've been there, quite a while, and they.
Since 2007. They first attacked it in 2007.
How did they get identified? This is in our battle.
It's there's two main methods to detect this. There's two main methods where people tow a big plankton net off its boat, and we just take it for, you don't need to go very far. And then we'll check at the bottom of the net, the catcher, and we'll see if there's any spiny water fleas. Also, I do the demonstration. We'll take samples from the deepest part of the lake and see if there's any spiny water flea corpses or remains at the bottom of the sediment.
Okay.
And that's another way we can detect if they're.
But they tend to hover in that one,
Yeah, so they wouldn't stay towards the surface upwards, a little bit too warm for them. So they kind of the lake is in layers. So it's right from the top. So it's a little bit cool.
Yeah. Who has the question?
Okay, I can take questions.
Gene, I'm sorry.
Can the spiny water
Oh, I was
flea
looking
be
at, oh, a couple minutes.
transported on like ducks and balloons and other?
So that I've heard this before, where there is ideas that waterfowl could be the main spreaders of some of these invasives, just other plants or other or spiny water flea. But yes, it is possible. That's something that's incredibly difficult to research, but when we look at the maps of what lakes have invasives, it's the lakes that tend to have the most public access. So that from there we can kind of predict that lakes where the most boaters go to have the invasives. But there are some outliers to that. There's a lake south of here, I think in Oneida, that has very minimal public access, but it is full of Eurasian water milfoil. And so we can't be completely certain how it got there, but we can be pretty confident that it's mostly boats and other people introducing it to different lakes. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Any other questions about spiny water flea, invasives, the lakes, what I do at Vilas County?
When was your last sampling, like in Stormy Lake, to see what the increase or decrease or how many there are?
I know some of my do you know Kathy Higley? She's with Land and Water. We were just right here in the courthouse. I think it was either in May or maybe June. I think she took a plankton tow to kind of judge their density numbers. Are they growing? Are they shrinking? But that's still raw data right now. As I think we send it to the DNR and they kind of process that. So I'm not completely sure. No. But I know these samples in the bottles here. I took them from there's the boat landing off of that dock by the boat landing on Stormy Lake. It's deep enough that it can take the plankton that can kind of swoosh it and then take the sample at the bottom of the plankton. I wish I brought the plankton. That would be great. And that's kind of, it's in this little soda can, not a soda can, but it's like the size of a soda can catcher, and then I can dump it out into a bigger bottle and then pick up the spiny water fleas from there. But another method that we use to detect spiny water flea, this is an Ekman dredge sampler. And so what we do with this is, we'll drop this to the bottom of a lake, and more specifically, we'll take it to the bottom of the lake of the deepest part of the lake, known as the deep hole. And if I can get it on some here. Loaded. So we'll take this to the bottom of the lake. And we'll make sure it rests at the bottom. And so just imagine this rope is extended maybe 30 feet, 40 feet down. And we'll send this from the boat and we'll throw it down. And that might take your fingers off if you're not too careful, but
That's a sample you don't want, right?
No. We want the brown, mucky. It's pretty gross at the bottom of the lake. It's all that decomposed plant matter, fish poop. Everything's at the bottom. And what we look for, we put it in a plastic bag and we send it to the State Lab of Hygiene in Madison. And they have their special instrumentation. They have their special people look for spiny water flea, but also I think also zebra mussel matter, as well as spiny water flea, either corpses or remains or whatnot about spinies. information here, and if anyone still wants to look under magnification at some spiny water fleas, but
So there was an article in the paper, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago about a decontamination at a particular landing. Is that just your cleaning station? Is that what that was?
yeah, actually, if once we're finished with questions, we can all take a walk just across the street right here. I have the truck and trailer, and the whole trailer with the pressure washer, and I'm at a landing on Big Muskellunge Lake, which doesn't have spinies. Well, we did do the Ekman about 3 weeks ago, so we're hoping for no spinies. But I'm also on North Trout, Plum, and Star.
So are you familiar with Stormy with our boat landing?
What about the boat?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, it's on an incline. So we've talked a lot about washing boats and trailers, but because of the slant, all of the residue would go back.
It drained into Star.
Yeah, do you have any solutions for a problem like that?
That's all paved, right? All paved
It
going
is
down.
paved.
Oh. If there could be some sort of way to catch that water or make sure it infiltrates into the ground, I'd have to take another look at Stormy. It's been like a month since I've been there for the plankton tow, but that's something you could talk to Kathy Higley, or maybe you could, there could be a request to the DNR to
Yeah.
fix the boat landing, or,
Yeah.
well, not fix the boat landing, but I guess make it so we can clean boats there.
Yeah, that's a problem, yeah.
That's an issue.
Yeah.
I know each of the boat landings I'm at, I'm on the other side of the parking lot, so none of that drains into the lake.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions?
Of the 5 lakes in the county that have them, do you see big increases in any of them, or is it staying the same, or is it decreasing?
The number of spinies in them?
Yes.
So actually there was a really interesting paper by the Child Limnology Center by some scientists and some PhD students there looking at Trout Lake, and then in 2017 when they detected them, it just rose. It was going up and up and up and up. But then in 2020 they saw like kind of a real stark decline, and so they wanted to know why. So they looked at the different fish populations compared to the spiny water flea populations, and they found that as the spiny water flea populations and densities dropped, the Cisco population was going through the roof. So they kind of made a connection between, because the Cisco will eat spiny water flea, and so the Cisco populations were going up while water flea was going down. And actually they saw like they would take plankton tows and they'll have barely any spiny water fleas in Trout Lake. So that was a really interesting research paper, but it still isn't like, we don't have a big net that only takes spiny water fleas out. But it is interesting that the Cisco populations went up while spiny water flea went down, because the Cisco is just eating on spiny water flea. We haven't seen that in any other lake. But,
What are Cisco's?
it's another fish in the lake. They don't get crazy large. I don't know how large they get, like the maximum or minimum, but they're a planktivore. It's like carnivore, herbivore. They're a planktivore, so their primary food source is plankton, and so that spiny water flea is really perfect for them.
Okay.
But the DNR does not recommend stocking lakes with Cisco's.
No, because that could cause just another imbalance
Okay.
in the food chain pyramid, having too much of one fish.
Okay.
And lots of these lakes, nature just has mechanisms, just like natural selection, because you could stock a lake with a whole bunch of Cisco, but all that extra Cisco will probably just die off, and it might not make a big dent, and spiny water fleas would just repopulate.
I have a question on, not about spiny water fleas. So, we have in our lake, we have water spiders, and they
Okay.
walk on top of the water. I don't know what they are, and they're just, it covers the lake. And they came when we had like the water, the lake receded, and then when it came back up, we got lily pads. And then lily pads, all of a sudden, these water spiders everywhere, so.
Okay.
Do you know
I
anything
wouldn't
about
know
that?
too much about that.
Okay, all right.
Lots of my invasive water spiders.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I wouldn't,
No, I
I
just-
wouldn't know too much.
Right, thank you.
That could be a Kathy Higley question.
Do you have a schedule for testing other lakes that you haven't tested?
Yes, we do. So, okay, I don't have that schedule with me, but I know it. So we've gone to Big St. Germain, Little St. Germain, we've gone to Ballard Lake, we've gone to Lake Laura. We did Big Muskellunge, we're hoping for no spinies there. We've done, what we're going to do, we're going to do High Lake, that's up north, so there's a lot of lakes here. We're going to, Big Lake, the one in Boulder and Prescott, and
The Twins on the list?
which one?
North and South Twin?
I don't think those are on the list, no. But we're going to see Black Oak Lake too. That'll be on Wednesday. We're going to go to High Lake, Big Lake, and Black Oak Lake. But there's maybe been 3 or 4 other lakes that we hit too. Yeah. And then we do the Ekman dredge. We take that dredge sample at the bottom. Yeah. Are there any other questions?
Well, like if these things are in a well, or what well, whatever you call them, and I mean, all it takes just a handful of them get dumped in the lake, and that's
Yeah.
what it takes to.
So, not theoretically at all. It only takes one spiny water flea. They can reproduce asexually, where if you have, I should be more specific, it takes one female spiny water flea, because they can produce eggs, and these eggs are just a clone of itself, and then it's in the lake. They can produce male and female, and where it will produce even tougher eggs that could last through the winter, and then hatch in the spring. And then, so yeah, it would only take one female, but they don't tend to spread by ones. Actually, I can go back to that picture I had. They like to be in globs, like this. You won't tend to see just one spiny water flea, but they like to group up into like a goop. And that's what we can see on this fishing line here. They'll group up and kind of glob together. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? No. Do you guys want to see the decon unit? That's what we call it. That's the pressure washer. Because that's all I have left for here, unless anyone still wants to see it. But I have the truck and trailer just on across the street. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,